Tonight, a new era in the United States House of Representatives, with changes in the way lawmakers vote during the next few months of COVID precautions. And a historic day on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange as traders return to the newly socially distant positions for the first time in 2 months. Plus,
we were always here, we were always guarding.
How some of America's most prestigious soldiers are carrying on with their iconic job duties amid the pandemic. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A historic and hotly contested new way of voting in the United States House. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Jenna Browder has the night off. Well, tonight, some House lawmakers are making their way back to Washington after the Memorial Day holiday weekend, preparing for a week of votes. But others plan to stay home, not at all concerned about their votes not being counted. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has tonight's top story. Abigail, this all is a result of the recently approved practice of proxy voting, something never before done in the House's 230-plus years of existence. How exactly is this going to work?
That's right, John. And as you said, this is certainly going to be a historic and unique week in the House. Now, the way it works is that members who are unable to return to D.C. for various reasons involving this current pandemic can submit a letter to the office of the clerk designating another member to vote on their behalf. Now, in addition to these letters, they then send the member voting for them very specific instructions on how they want to vote on each bill that the members who are voting for them cannot change or cannot vary from. And as you said, it's the first time in history that House members have been able to vote without physically being here in D.C. And Republicans are not exactly embracing this idea. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says if we're expecting doctors and frontline workers that are essential to be showing up to work, he believes that House makers are essential as well and that they should be physically coming to Washington to do their job. Take a look.
Now just 20 people can run all of Congress because of the proxy program that one person can carry 10 votes. How do your constituents hold you accountable when you give that power to somebody else?
So far, only Democrat lawmakers have taken advantage of the proxy voting and set proxies for this week. We'll see if that changes, but most members are expected to physically be back in Washington.
Abigail, the measure approving proxy voting passed with no Republican votes on the very same day the House passed the latest relief package more than 10 days ago. That measure, the HEROES Act, as far as we know, still hasn't been taken up by the Republican-controlled Senate. Where do things stand now?
That's right. And as far as the HEROES Act goes, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said it's dead on arrival in the Senate. He is changing his tune a little bit, saying that more relief is not too far off, but to not expect it to look anything like the $3 trillion House HEROES Act. Now, we're seeing right now that lawmakers are pretty focused on tweaking the current aid bills that have already passed. And while we might eventually see an extension in unemployment benefits, that will likely come with a fix to make sure that people on unemployment aren't making more money than they were when they were actually still at their jobs. And a lot of Republican senators are also pushing back on giving more money in aid to states, with Republican Senator Rick Scott taking to the Senate floor last week to say that he believes the House bill is a blue state bailout and that he does not believe that Floridians want their federal tax dollars going to states like California and New York who want to spend federal tax dollars to fund things like Planned Parenthood clinics and program undocumented immigrants. Take a look.
We are bailing out liberal politicians who cannot live within their means, and now we're asking Floridians to pay for the incompetency of governors like Andrew Cuomo. We know California, New York, and Illinois have no problem using hard-earned taxpayer dollars to fund their liberal priorities and to backfill their budget shortfalls and solve their long-standing fiscal problems. That's not fair to the citizens of states like Florida.
Now, even though McConnell is signaling another bill is on the way. It's unclear right now what will be in that bill, and we could be weeks away from them actually voting on it. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Abigail. And here now is Senator Chris Coons from his home state in Delaware. Senator Coons, welcome to Faith Nation, and thanks for making time for us.
Thank you, John. It's always good to be on with you.
Well, Senator Coons, let's start off with 100,000 deaths from COVID-19 this week. Your thoughts on where things stand as we balance public health against restarting the economy, especially after seeing images of crowded beaches, boardwalks, and waterways from Memorial Day weekend. People clearly are eager to get back to normal.
Well, John, that's right. There are folks all over the country who are a little stir crazy with cabin fever, who are eager to get back out and to enjoy the outdoors, and are straining at the restrictions of some of the state shutdown orders. But frankly, I'm concerned that if we reopen too quickly, if we see folks not respecting social distancing, not wearing masks, as we did this past weekend, that we may see a resurgence of the pandemic, as has happened in other countries. We're in a better place than we were 2 months ago. We've got better hospital capacity, more ventilators, more PPE or personal protective equipment available. And there is a new therapeutic, remdesivir, that's being distributed throughout the country that should shorten hospital stays. But frankly, if we have a resurgence, that may lead to another clampdown, which would frankly just push our economy further back into a recession. So my hope is that as states reopen, that employers and folks will follow the CDC guidelines and recommendations and respect social distancing so we don't end up right back where we were.
Senator Coons, you have a bill that would double the size of Americorps. Can you explain how that will help combat the crisis, and how much support does it have in a divided Washington?
Americorps is a long-standing national service program that is flexible and local. It's directed by state commissions for national community service appointed by governors all over our country. And today there's 75,000 Americans who have engaged in national service. Thousands of them have changed the focus of their programs to do response to this COVID-19 pandemic. So they're helping with food banks, they're helping with schools and distance learning, they're helping with contact tracing and testing. And the bill that I've introduced, along with more than 90 members of the House and Senate, would double it in size and give a new generation of Americans the opportunity to give back to their country, to earn an education opportunity, and to put their skills and strength to work at a time when we've got more than 33 million unemployed Americans and millions of younger people who had plans for college or were halfway through their college studies and have had those plans disrupted. I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to call on a new generation to step forward and serve our country. We've got some great co-sponsors in the House that include senior Republicans like Tom Cole of Oklahoma and Hal Rogers of Kentucky, who've partnered with David Price of North Carolina, as well as other members of the House and Senate. So I'm optimistic that we will see this bill pass and that it'll create an opportunity for servant leadership, for service to our country by a new generation of Americans.
Containing the virus and developing a vaccine is only part of the conversation. You and Senator Lindsey Graham are co-sponsors of a measure that aims to prevent another outbreak from happening again by effectively shutting down wet markets like the one in Wuhan, China. How would your bill do that?
Well, that's right, John. Senator Lindsey Graham and I have traveled together. We've legislated together on issues in the developing world. And as I think may be well known to your viewers, there are these practices around the world of so-called wet markets. These are wildlife trafficking markets where hungry people take advantage of a nearby forest or jungle, and they traffic in often rare species or animals, both live and recently slaughtered, that don't typically come together. So there was a wet market in Wuhan, China, where it's believed this zoonotic disease, COVID-19, that's a fancy word for a disease that jumps from animals to people, may have made the transition from bats or some more exotic animals like pangolins into humans. And so we have to be on the lookout for the next pandemic. Scientists have been warning us for decades that we were overdue for a global pandemic like the one in 1918 that killed tens of millions of people worldwide. And this pandemic is just a warning to us that there may be more in the future.
All right, Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, John.
And to the economy. For the first time in 2 months, the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange is back open for business. In the first phase of reopening, it allowed a limited number of traders to return to the floor, only about a quarter, all of whom wore masks and practiced social distancing. Ringing the bell at today's opening with the market starting higher, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The market ended the day with gains, the Dow up around 530 points and the S&P around 35. Now to the race for the White House. Both former Vice President Joe Biden and Donald Trump are focusing on the economy, which President Trump has long touted as one of his administration's top accomplishments. But with historic job losses and shrinking economic output, the presumptive Democratic nominee is criticizing the president's pandemic response. Joining me now, White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Ben, Biden isn't mincing any words.
Yeah, John, you're right. Biden flat out blames President Trump for both the economic collapse and the lives lost to COVID-19. Take a listen.
The president's response to all this has cost lives and it's cost jobs. And the way to fix the economy is get public health response correct and structure economy. What we're doing now is upside down. The bigger you are, the faster you get the money. The smaller you are, you don't get the money.
Now, Biden said that we are, quote, a long way away from the recovery. Now, that contradicts President Trump, who expects the economy to bounce back in the fall. And then he said we expect a strong economy next year in 2021. John?
Now, Ben, the president in recent days has also turned his focus to mail-in voting, attacking the process and claiming that it will result in a rigged election. Why is he dead set against mail-in ballots?
Yeah, John, President Trump said that Democrats are using mail-in ballots to, quote, steal or scam the election. And today he took aim at California's governor, who announced that every single registered voter in the state will, in fact, receive a mail-in ballot for the November election. This no doubt upset President Trump. He took to Twitter, tweeting that there is no way, zero, that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. Mailboxes will be robbed, ballots will be forged, and even illegally printed out and fraudulently signed. But Oregon's governor pushed back on President Trump's remarks, saying for 22 years, we've been using mail-in ballots. They are safe, effective, and accessible to our voters. Democrats say Republicans are merely trying to suppress voter turnout and improve their chance for President Trump to get reelected come November. John?
All right, thank you, CBN's Ben Kennedy. Coming up, the tragedy of Christian persecution and the hope building around what's being done to stop it.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. 2 Republican senators are asking President Trump to protect Christians facing persecution in Nigeria. Iowa's Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley recently sent a letter asking the president to consider deploying a special envoy to help Nigeria's Christian genocide. In it, they point to 40,000 Nigerian deaths tied to the terror group Boko Haram, which, along with the Islamic State, has long threatened the lives of Christians in the country. At the White House in 2018, Mr. Trump asked the visiting president of Nigeria to protect innocent civilians of all faiths. The senators want to see more action. Well, church is where people go to worship, grow in their faith, and feel safe. But increasingly around the globe, churches and houses of worship are being targeted with violence and persecution. It's a tragedy the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom is following closely. Here's CBN's Jennifer Wishon with more.
This is an alarming trend that religious freedom monitors say is turning churches and other houses of worship around the world into houses of horror. And joining me now is Commission Chairman Tony Perkins. Mr. Chairman, tell me what the world saw over the past year in terms of attacks against houses of worship.
Well, Jennifer, the situation has gotten to a point where these attacks on houses of worship have grown in their frequency. And it's concerning, where we see a lot of this happening in Europe. We see it happening globally. And it's very disheartening when you see a house of worship, which should be a place of peace, a sanctuary, a place that honors God and allows you to worship Him as you see fit. These are turning into houses of horrors as they're being targeted by people. And this is intended in many ways to discourage people from participating in their faith and exercising their faith, and has a chilling effect upon religious freedom. And so it's an issue that we have been covering very, very closely and speaking very loudly about.
Many Christians, of course, remember the attack against hundreds of Christians in Sri Lanka, Easter of 2019. Are these the types of attacks that you're talking about?
Yes, in part, we're seeing these attacks that come in different fashions. Some may be, for instance, cemeteries or other places that are of significance spiritually. But yes, we've seen attacks in Sri Lanka. We've seen attacks in various parts of the world. In Europe, we saw them in France. We saw them in Germany. Those direct assaults are designed to intimidate and to drive people from public expression of their faith. But now there's also governments that are engaging in, it wouldn't be targeting necessarily with violence, but through regulation, restrictions on buildings, restrictions on meetings, are also in effect targeting houses of worship. So that's of concern to us as well, and is being used by some governments that are hostile to religious freedom.
You know, I mean, you kind of have your finger on the pulse of the world when it comes to religious freedom. Are you seeing these attacks being successful, these moves by the government being successful in terms of having that chilling effect, you know, people not, participating in their faith, if you will?
You know, that's a really, really good question. It's sometimes hard to quantify, but we find genuine faith knows no boundaries, and people that are committed to their faith will continue forward at great price. What we want to do in terms of the commission and what we want to see America do that has long stood for this fundamental human right is come alongside those people so that they don't have to pay that great price to exercise their faith. And we were very encouraged to see this past year that the President of the United States, at his the first time we've ever had a sideline conversation where a president gathered at the United Nations and called for religious freedom and a recognition of that, and he put forth $25 million toward our recommendation that the protection of houses of worship and places that are significant to people of faith be protected.
Chairman Perkins, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you continuing to cover this issue because it is of vast importance, not only to people around the globe, but very important to the people here in the United States as well.
Very important indeed. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, the Touch Me Not motto takes on new meaning for the Army's Old Guard. That story and more still ahead on Faith Nation.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Well, neither rain nor sleet, snow, or a global pandemic can keep the Army's Old Guard from carrying out its mission. CBN's Gabe LaMonica reports on the soldiers tasked with guarding and burying our nation's heroes.
For now, Arlington National Cemetery is closed to the public, with funerals closed to the media. Still, the mission of the Old Guard here continues. The final call plays on. Those 24 notes known as taps, marking the end of a day on base. And a national song of tribute to fallen heroes. Even in the midst of a pandemic. This remains a place immune to change. From the eternal flame marking the grave of President John F. Kennedy to the tomb of the unknown, where the Old Guard stands watch over the resting place of unnamed soldiers.
In keeping with the dignity of the ceremony, it is requested that we remain silent and standing.
The usual crowds who silently watched this ceremonial changing of the guard are absent now. But the American soldier known but to God remains under constant and meticulous watch.
For us, it doesn't matter if it's a hurricane or in this case, if it's a pandemic. We are always here. We are always guarding.
Through a hurricane and even during the 9/11 terror attacks. In rain, snow, sleet, and gloom of night, these watchmen have kept a 24-hour-a-day vigil for more than 80 years. And the coronavirus isn't about to scratch that record.
It's a crazy look.
But this is the first time they've worn masks in close quarters.
Heirs, hope.
And masks are now worn during funeral services and burials.
Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
Even as the nation's veterans and their families continue to receive full military honors.
The unknowns deserve that. Our country deserves that. This place represents the very best of this country. Quite frankly, at a time in which we need reminding of what our very best looks like.
That very best represented by an elite group of soldiers, sometimes standing still as statues. This is the oldest active duty regiment in the U.S. Army. But beyond the pomp and circumstance, the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment is a fully trained and certified Army combat unit. To serve as a sentinel and what is known as the official escort to the President is considered one of the Army's highest honors. For them, the honor is in the mission. The guards don't wear masks while keeping watch, but they do keep their social distance during the changing of the guard and the all-important uniform inspection. The motto of the old guard, touch me not. Gabe LaMonica, CBN News, Arlington National Cemetery.
Great piece, Gabe. Coming up, as economies begin to reopen, so do holy sites around the world. We'll be back with more Faith Nation after this.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Finally tonight, revered Christian sites are beginning to reopen to the public in the Holy Land. Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity opened its doors to worshipers today after closing for nearly 3 months due to the COVID-19 lockdown. According to tradition, the church is built over the site where Jesus was born. The church is now open with new social distancing restrictions. Well, thank you for joining us this evening for Faith Nation. We hope to see you again tomorrow.